Today's story is The Two Kittens and the Great Blanket Fort. One rainy afternoon, the twin kittens Joshua and Buckle found themselves stuck indoors. The usual sunlight that streamed through the windows was replaced by the gentle patter of rain. The world outside looked wet and gray, but inside the house was warm and cozy. Joshua stared out the window, his tail twitching with restlessness. "There's nothing to do," he sighed, feeling the weight of boredom. Buckle, always the one to think up mischief, perked up suddenly. "I've got an idea," he said, his blue eyes sparkling with excitement. Joshua turned around, curious. "What is it?" Buckle grinned and darted off towards the closet. "Let's build a blanket fort, the biggest one we've ever made." Joshua's eyes widened with delight. "A fort? That's brilliant!" He quickly joined his brother, rummaging through the closet for blankets, pillows, and anything else that could help. Before long, the living room was transformed into a flurry of fabric. The kittens worked together, draping blankets over chairs, stacking pillows to form walls, and creating secret tunnels only they could navigate. The fort grew and grew until it stretched from one end of the room to the other. "This is the best fort ever!" Buckle exclaimed as he added the final blanket to the roof. Joshua nodded in agreement, his brown eyes shining with pride. "It's perfect. We should live in here forever." The two kittens crawled inside their creation, marveling at the cozy space they had built. They brought in their favorite toys, a flashlight, and even a few snacks. It was their own little world, safe and snug from the rainy day outside. But as the day went on, the fort began to feel less like an adventure and more like a challenge. The blankets sagged under the weight of the ceiling, and the walls wobbled with every movement. Joshua and Buckle realized they hadn't made the fort as sturdy as they thought. "Oh no, the roof is caving in," Joshua meowed as a blanket slid off a chair, nearly covering him. Buckle scrambled to hold up a wall, but it was no use. "We need to fix it before the whole thing collapses." The kittens tried to reinforce the fort, but the more they tried, the more it seemed to fall apart. Pillows tumbled, blankets slipped, and soon the entire structure was on the verge of collapse. Just then, Mrs. Whiskers walked into the room. She gasped as she saw the kittens frantically trying to save their fort. "Oh, Joshua, Buckle, what have you gotten yourselves into now?" she asked, her voice both amused and concerned. Joshua looked up at her, his whiskers drooping. "We tried to build the biggest fort ever, but it's falling apart." Mrs. Whiskers smiled gently. "Building something big is fun, but it's important to make sure it's strong and secure first. Why don't I help you rebuild it?" With Mrs. Whiskers' guidance, the kittens learned how to make their fort sturdy and safe. They used fewer blankets, but they made sure each one was properly supported. Together, they rebuilt the fort, and this time, it was even better. When they were finished, the kittens crawled back inside, and Mrs. Whiskers joined them. The fort was cozier than ever, with walls that didn't wobble and a roof that didn't sag. They all sat together, enjoying the warmth and safety of their creation. Joshua looked at Buckle and smiled. "This is the best fort ever." Buckle nodded, his blue eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "And it's all thanks to Mrs. Whiskers." Mrs. Whiskers chuckled and patted the kittens on their heads. "Remember, it's not just about building something big. It's about building something strong. That way, it can last through any storm." And so, Joshua and Buckle learned another important lesson. Sometimes, taking the time to do something right is even more rewarding than doing it quickly. From that day on, whenever they built something, they made sure it was strong, just like their bond with each other. But no matter how careful they were, one thing always remained the same. Joshua and Buckle never lost their sense of adventure. Thanks again for listening to Super Bedtime Stories. We hope you enjoyed your listen tonight. Please make sure to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this book, feel free to click on one of the videos on the screen for another good, heartwarming family fun story. We strive to provide good moral bedtime stories that parents know are safe for their little ones and also have a good lesson. See you soon.